Hi, I'm Shane from Artificial Futures, and Alanis Morissette's Jagged Little Pill was one of the greatest albums of the 1990s, and I will fight anyone who disagrees. She is a Canadian icon, and this country should do more to celebrate her work. Now, granted, some people have slagged her song Ironic for essentially featuring a series of shitty events that weren't actually ironies, but I believe Alanis was just smarter than all of us, and she was going meta by writing a song whose only real irony was the fact that there are no ironies in it. Okay, what am I doing stealing Ed Burns' jokes? Well, you see, earlier this week, CNN published an article that talked about how AI is supposed to be making our lives easier, but for some people, it's actually making their work more difficult. You see, as more and more AI tools are being introduced into the workplace, we're finding all kinds of problems popping up. Employees are starting to feel like guinea pigs. They're feeling like they've been thrown these new tools with no real understanding of what they are or idea of how to use them. And in some cases, some people's work has even increased because these new AI tools are now generating more content or more work for them to do. When I read this, I couldn't help but think of Lizanne Bainbridge's 1981 Human Factors paper, The Ironies of Automation, one of my true favorites of all time. In this paper, she describes a host of different ironies that occur when we automate work. So we take a technology and we replace some aspect of how human beings work, and while we think we're going to make things easier and more efficient, in many cases, quite the opposite happens. One of the ironies that she talks about is this idea of skill degradation, which is that as we automate work, we take a human work and we replace that with a piece of technology, and we leave behind the fact that the human starts to lose their skills in that space. Now, no one misses phone switch operators much these days because that's a task that we've fully automated. But what if we look at something like writing? Right now, more and more people are learning to use ChatGPT for writing basic things like emails or short stories or blogs. And you may think that this isn't a problem because, well, we can just continue to use ChatGPT. But in fact, this is actually impacting how our minds work. We're reducing our own ability to communicate and degrading our own skills in this space. Another irony that she talks about is how human beings are generally not great at supervising work. We're better at doing the work. And yet, when we automate something and we're sitting there supervising it, we have to be ready at the drop of a hat to take over if anything ever fails. An example that's often pointed to elucidate this is the Air France Flight 447 crash in 2009. What happened here was that the autopilot suddenly switched off and a host of different error flags came up. Now, because the pilots didn't really know what was going on and all they were doing was supervising, they panicked. They freaked out and they didn't think to just grab the wheel and take over. And so instead, they watched the plane descend down into the sea while they sat helplessly not knowing what to do with all these errors and the fact that the autopilot had turned off. But perhaps the most damning of all the ironies in this paper is the fact that whatever we automate, all the leftover tasks go to human beings. Now, this may seem pretty innocuous, but think about how we would normally automate things. We look at a host of different works, different processes and things like that. And because we're lazy, we grab for the low-hanging fruit. We go for the simple stuff. This is fine. We then can design and develop new technologies and use AI to automate all these simple little tasks. But what's now left over is all very cognitively taxing and complex work. So if I'm someone who spent 8 hours a day, writing emails and doing simple little things, and suddenly we've started to automate a lot of that work, what's left over is a full workday of taxing, complex, and very demanding work. This makes my life hell. This makes my life that much more difficult. These are the kinds of ironies that can cause real problems when we start to automate work. And these are known issues. This paper was written over 40 years ago, and yet we're still making the same mistakes. And it's because we're blindly seasoning our workplaces with AI without actually thinking about the human implications. See, the most important part of an AI project is not the machine learning model or the data that we gather, it's the people. We need to be thinking about how to do proper change management so that we can take people from their old ways of working into their new in a way that respects them and works with them. We can build the greatest technologies in the world, but it'll be useless if no one wants to use it. So next time you're thinking of adding a little bit of AI to your workplace, do something crazy. Maybe ask your employees first how they feel and what they think about it. Wouldn't that be ironic? No. No, wait, that I just Alanis it, didn't I? Yeah, no, that's definitely not ironic.